Am I on? I am. Good morning. Salam alaikum. It is always such a joy to be in Dubai. I love it here so much. I used to live here, and now my job is to travel the globe and reconnect our communities and our organizations. So today, I don't want to tell you why I believe, and you should too, that the connected hospitality leader wins. I want to show you. I want to give you the data, and I'm going to give you the science as well. But first of all, let me paint a picture of the state of our world, the world that you are creating hospitality experiences within, and that your clients are coming from. And if anyone knows the role of hospitality in changing your life, it's me, because I spend most of my life in a hotel. But here's the thing. 335 million people don't have a single friend. 335 million people going through life without connection, without any friends. 900,000 people, nearly 1 million of us, die every year of loneliness. You know, the biggest cost to our healthcare system worldwide, it's no longer heart disease or diabetes, not cancer. It's loneliness. Because to be alone is not an absence of people. Certainly not in Dubai, right? There are people everywhere, in all of those roads and malls. We're very rarely alone. To be lonely is to be disconnected. It's to sit in this room, I hope not, and feel like you don't fit in. And that's killing nearly 1 million people a year. And the sad thing is that statistically, half of this room, 250 of you probably, according to the data, are lonely. If you are a man, you are less likely to have acknowledged that. But for many of us, we don't want to talk about being lonely, right? But half of the world, half of your guests that come to check in, that arrive in Dubai for the dream, are here because they're lonely and they're looking for something else. They're looking for that Arab hospitality. They're looking to fit in. Because if you fall within that 52%, you have a 45% higher chance of dying early. These themes, and I know they're heavy for a Wednesday morning, right? But it is the state of our world. It's the state that you are working in, that you're hiring in, that your staff are coming from. It's the reality that our governments around the world, particularly forward-thinking ones like here in the UAE, are putting in policy and behavioral shifts to reconnect us. The government here in the UAE didn't just make it the year of community because it sounds good. They did it because they recognize that their economic growth, their success, relies on this, relies on us being connected and in community, particularly in a country where there's nearly 200 nationalities. But it's not just Dubai. You'll find this in Denmark and the UK, Japan, Singapore, governments all around the world that are putting into place process to reconnect us. But here's where it's really interesting. Every year, we spend $9.5 billion on self-help and self-growth. Who in this room in the last 5 years has invested into a course or bought a book by Brené Brown or Simon Sinek or joined a mastermind? Put your hands up. Who's invested in personal growth? Right, most of the room. And so you should, because as humans, if we don't grow, if we are stagnant, We don't do very well. It comes from evolution. It comes from when we were cavemen and women. If we didn't keep moving, the pastures where we lived would dry up. We would die. So as humans, we have evolved to grow, so keep investing. But here's where it gets interesting, and I call this the self-help paradox of our times. Because we're spending $9.5 billion a year on being better, stronger, more successful in our careers, and yet the data shows we've never been more disconnected. We have a mental health crisis. Half of the world is lonely. And yet we're spending to grow. We have become obsessed over the last 25 years in self-optimization. But you know what we forgot? Mutual optimization. It's all very well to grow, and you should. But don't do it without those around you. Don't do it without your team, without your family, without your friends. Because alone, we can never be as successful as we can as when we are together. As professionals, HR, our leaders, they've told us over and over for years, be better, be stronger, your KPIs, your growth plan, your system for change, your promotional pipeline. We became so obsessed with me, my journey, my life, my career, that we forgot about the we, the us. But you know what? In this industry, in hospitality, when people ask you, what do you do? You're at a barbecue. Someone says, what do you do for your work? I suspect it's unlikely that you say, well, I focus on the operational process development of the new expansion strategy into the USA. Right, you don't. I mean, you might if it's a job interview. But most of the time, you're going to say, oh, I work for Marriott. We have the most number of hotel rooms in the world. What are you talking about? You're talking about the we. Because the core of hospitality has always and will always be us. This is an industry based on us. From the minute you check in to the minute you walk into your office, you work with your team, all those young workers that move to your hotels from around the world. I get the chance to work in the Maldives a lot. And it's a great case study for how powerful this is. Because if you work or have ever worked on a resort, you literally live there, right? 7 days a week, every month, 52 weeks a year. You live in your work. So in this industry, we actually have a duty of care to connect our people. If you want them to behave and perform at their best, the very least is for them to be connected to you and the people they work with and the places that they're living. Many of them won't go home for Thanksgiving tomorrow. They'll celebrate, maybe at work, but probably not with the people they're most grateful for. Because that's the industry that you guys love, and it's an always-on job. As humans, we need to reconnect, and you know why? Because as humans, we need to belong. We don't do well when we're alone. When two babies are born equally sick, the one that gets more care, that is seen by those around them, outlives the other. If you're a parent and you have or had small children, right, what do they do the whole time? Mummy, look at me, Mummy, look at me skip. Mummy, did you see me skip? Mummy, Daddy, 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 look at me jump. Daddy, did you see me jump? What are they doing? They want you to acknowledge them. They want to be seen. They want to know that you see them amongst all of the work you're doing. They want you to stop and see them. From 2 years old, they know we need to belong to survive. It's who we are. When we get it wrong, right now, it's costing us a lot of money. $8.8 trillion a year. That is the estimated cost in a loss of productivity and performance due to 3 key things: disengagement, disconnection, and presenteeism. Disengagement, you know what that is. People turning up, doing their job, going home, but not much else. Disconnection, I touched on earlier. You work there, but you're not sure you belong there. You are disconnected to the team around you. And presenteeism, we see this a lot in Gen Z currently, only because they haven't found their place yet. Presenteeism is I turn up at 8, my shift is until 8, I do my job description, you cannot fire me, I did what you asked me to do, and that's all. There's nothing else. There's no innovation or communication or engagement or strategy. But I'm doing what you asked of me. I am present, and it is killing our bottom line. It is also killing customer experience. Today, the data in your industry is pretty tough to look at because it's a tough industry, right? Many of the leaders in hospitality, they say to me, Mimi, but the young ones aren't like us. They don't make people like us anymore in this industry. But here's the reality. Nearly 70% of hospitality employees are disengaged. So it's a lot of people, right? Close your eyes for a minute, right? Imagine your team. It doesn't matter if there's 5 or 500 or 50,000. But imagine that 70% of them just don't care. Imagine the cost to your bottom line. Imagine the cost to replace them, right? These are huge, huge numbers. 47% say that they are burnt out already. The solution for this is not just a well-being policy. Please have a well-being policy. But yoga classes and fruit baskets, they're very good and they're well-intentioned and we should have them. But they won't change the human condition. You can't reverse burnout with exercise classes. Because you know what burnout is? Burnout is a lack of purpose. The symptoms are tiredness. When I have no purpose, I feel exhausted by my job. But they're not burning out because they're tired. They're burning out because they're not connected. And the last one I'll give you in this space is around resignations. 49%, this is not hospitality, this is global. That 49% of us are looking to resign. So again, half of the room, obviously not this room, but half of most rooms statistically are looking to resign. Right? 1 foot's out the door. And I know, because I work in your industry, how hard it is to keep them. You train them and you invest in them, and then in year 4, they're like, hey, I'm just popping over to Hilton. Right? People are looking for opportunities to fit in, to find their purpose. And here's where it gets really interesting. 89% of you, if I asked you, in fact, let me ask you, be careful on these steps. When you belong, how does it impact your performance? So I'm going to ask you, when you feel that you belong in your team, how does it change how you work? How do you feel?
Very good.
You feel very good.
Motivated.
I would say motivated as well. Right? That took like 2 seconds. I could ask all of you and you would give me answers, right? Instantly, in 2 seconds, any human being can tell you that if you see me, if you value me, if I belong in your business, I want to work hard, I feel good, I feel motivated, I want to stay, I don't want to resign. I don't want to be part of the 49% that's leaving. We know it. We were born knowing it. And yet, only 38% of people have it. No wonder we have the problems we do. It's instinctive to want to belong, and yet we can't find it, and we're looking for it all of the time. Here, in this region, for the time I'm on stage, just under, we will lose $50 million because people just don't feel that you see them. They don't feel that they belong in your hotel, in your resort, as part of your brand. $50 million. But why? Right? Why is this the situation? Well, a huge part of it is due to something called the empathy deficit. Now, this was a term that President Obama coined back in 2006, before he was the president. He was in Washington delivering a speech, and he said to his audience, "I know I should talk about my federal deficit, but I think we should talk about our empathy deficit." But 20 years went by, and we didn't. So when I think about my own work, I promise you that 5 years ago, I wasn't being invited to these stages because people didn't know what this was. People hadn't recognized what President Obama was talking about, which is that economic growth, corporate growth, comes from the us. We've so far lost 30 years of this skill set, this ability to understand each other, and no, it's not an emotion, it's not sympathy, and it's not compassion. We have lost 48% of a skill set that literally keeps us alive. These are pro-social skills. That means it protects the human race from extinction. We need to be able to understand each other, to work together. So in the last 30 years, we've already lost nearly 50% of this skill set, and yes, it's a skill, it's built into your prefrontal cortex. So let me show you what it is. What is empathy? Let's ask the Joker, see what he has to say.
Have you seen what it's like out there, Murray? Do you ever actually leave the studio? Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy.
Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy. That's what we're talking about. We're talking simply about perspective taking. It's not a soft skill. It's not an emotion. It's the ability to know what the person next to you is thinking about the same situation that you're in. It's the ability to know why somebody you've just promoted to resort manager is doing less well after their promotion. It's your ability to know why someone around the boardroom table is clearly so upset with your new process. We're talking about human data, the ability to take the perspective of somebody else. And according to the World Economic Forum at Davos this year, they analyzed the core skills that we all need, not just hospitality, but leaders, if we want to drive economic growth. I'm not talking about mental health or inclusion, although those things will improve. We're talking about economic stability for our nations. And what the World Economic Forum did was they gathered all of the core skills, no pressure, there's a few, that leaders need to grasp in order to be successful in the next 5 years. And if you look at the close-up here, of course AI is at the top, right? It's here to stay. But underneath that, look at the skills in pink. On the right, resilience and flexibility. Because the only constant is change, right? Just when you think you've got it, it all changes. Then we have on the left, curiosity and lifelong learning. Well, you're all here doing that, right? You could be at your desks doing your emails. You're here to learn, yes, to connect, to network, to be curious, to meet new people. But then look at the one in the bottom. I remember the day, it was in about February this year, and I woke up and my phone was like ping, 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 ping. 27 people sent me this chart one morning. Because I had been on this lone journey, telling the world about why we need empathy in our businesses in order to grow. And then one day in Davos, the WEM stood up and said, hey, we need empathy if we're going to grow. Because how can you drive a new performance strategy, a benefits program, or launch a new hotel if you don't understand the people you're doing it for? If you don't know what motivates me, particularly for Gen Z, if you don't understand them, how are you going to drive them? How are you going to motivate them? As a female leader, if you don't ask me how I want to be included, how will you include me? So this year, the World Economic Forum put it on the map. The fourth industrial revolution is changing so many things. But it's not only about the tech, the AI and the algorithms and the machine learning. It's about the people. It's shifting who we lead and, yes, how we lead. If you're a parent and you think about how you bring up your children, do you bring up your children the exact same way that your parents brought you up? No, right? So why is it that so many of our leaders still believe in the leadership that their leaders led them with? Times have changed, and so should we. In your industry, you spend 105,300 hours working. It's a lot of time, right? 100,000 hours of your lives are at work in hospitality. So there is nowhere where this message is more important, because your lives and your work and your work and your lives, it's all the same thing. And as I said earlier, especially for your staff, they live in the hotels, they live on desert islands in the middle of nowhere. Their life is their work. And if we're saying that humans need to belong and connect to survive, and they're spending 52 weeks a year in your hotels, it follows that these leadership skills are more pertinent for you guys than for anyone else. So what we're talking about is this. We're talking about hospitality's human sustainability strategy. How do you keep your people? Because it's a tough, tough world out there. How do you protect them? How do you motivate them? How do you ensure that they stay with you and not the island next door? We're talking about the sustainability of our people. And here's the thing. I'm not talking about a concept. I'm not traveling the world to teach you the 7 steps to better leadership. Because what this is a memory. Because you were born knowing this. As you sit here today and listen to me, what I'm asking you to do is remember why this matters. Why do you need to belong? Why do your children need to fit in at school? Why does it matter to your wife that she likes her job and feels happy there every day? We were born knowing this. I want to play you a clip of my daughter. This is Umi. She's 7. And recently, she walked in on me creating some content. And like any 7-year-old girl, she said, "Mummy, why don't I have a YouTube channel? I want to be in the videos." Come. There's no preparation for this. You can see by her messy hair. But I want you to see what she said at 7 years old when I asked her as a child what this means to us as humans. Why do we listen to people?
We listen to people because when people are sad or when they're not happy, when they explain something to you, you have to listen, or the people think that you're not listening to them.
What happens if you don't listen? How do they feel?
If you don't listen, they feel sad and they think you're not their friend.
They feel sad and they think you're not their friend. Now maybe you don't go to work to make friends, maybe you do. But the reality is the same. She knows at 7, if you don't listen to me, if you don't look at me, if you don't give me the time of day, I don't matter. I think you're not my friend, i.e., I don't hold value to you. So the question is this: how did we forget? Why is it that when we go to work, We forget the things that make us human. Why do we have the problems and disengagement? Why are we the loneliest generation in history? How did we forget? And can we remember really fast? I believe that this is the secret to all human success. That's my opinion. But what's not an opinion? What's a fact is this, that it is definitely the secret to all business success, especially in hospitality. Because without your people, you have no hospitality. Hospitality lives in my connection to you and their connection to them, and then those people's connection back to the beginning. There can be no growth if we don't first connect, however well you amplify your AI or do your digital marketing. When we get it right, all kinds of business drivers go up. People with strong social bonds in the workplace, and that doesn't mean friends, it just means that they feel belonging, they feel connected, are 3 times more engaged. So if anywhere on your HR strategy is to create more engagement, start with belonging. Employees who feel included are 34% more productive. They want to work harder for you. They want to do more because they feel that they matter. They feel connected to your vision. They feel included in the success. There was some research recently in Malaysia, where I live, that showed this, that when empathy and reliability, consistency, right, of your customer experience, when that goes up, customer satisfaction goes up by 3. And of course, where does that lead us? To money, to loyalty, to repeat visits. As a business traveler, I am your most loyal traveler because I can't be bothered to go to a new hotel every time. If I come back to Dubai, I want to come back to where I come back to because at least there's some sense of home. I feel I belong. Hotels that have this empathetic intelligence in their customer experience, that are able to take that to their customers, grow their revenue 20% faster for really human reasons. People will spend more if you make them feel included. And the last one, everybody's favorite, is that organizations that have high empathy make 21% higher profits. So there really is no complexity to this. When we pull our people together, when you connect them, when we belong, we grow and we make 20% more profit. To understand others, I think, it's the skill set of our times. It is the thing that will make the next 5 years different for your business, for your people, and yes, for your children, because our world needs you to reconnect. If you haven't read Will Guadara's book, Unreasonable Hospitality, you should. He's the gentleman that led 11 Madison Avenue to become the #1 restaurant in the world against all odds. He talks about how to sustain unreasonably amazing hospitality. And he says this: to win, implement systems in your business that force your teams to stand in the shoes of others, because it is the only way to sustain #1. This is fundamental to who we are, because belonging, it's not a soft skill. It's scientific. It's based on how our brains work and the neuroscience of performance. So if you came here today thinking that perhaps these were soft skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, communication, ladies and gentlemen, may today be the last day, because these are hard skills. They're hard to find, they're really hard to maintain, but they have a really hard impact on your business growth. I believe that if you get this right, as leaders, as humans, it might change your life. because it certainly changed mine. But more than that, it will certainly, without one hesitation, change your business. If you can increase belonging and connection, yes, empathy, human data in your business will grow. You can train it because it's a hard skill built into the brain, and we're not born with a fixed amount. This is a skill that you can choose to use. You can choose to listen to each other in the break. And when you do, and this is from data that I've gathered working with brands like ALUR and Marriott, when you ask hospitality staff themselves, one-on-one, what happens when I listen to you? What happens when you belong? These are all the amazing things they say. I can handle stress better, I make better decisions, I'm happier, I'm more loyal, there's less conflict in my team. Perhaps your entire HR strategy shifts and it doesn't cost you anything. Because motivation is relational. As human beings, everything you choose to do is connected to other people. It's who we are psychologically. We are driven to perform, to grow, to change, to earn because of the people around us, to provide for others, to connect with others, to date others. Motivation is always relational. So because of that, in the end, you can't lead anyone if you don't listen to them. Not sustainably. Because you know what happens when we listen? People follow. And I call this listening-led leadership. Because amongst all the definitions of leadership, and yes, there are millions, I think it's quite simple. To lead, someone has to be following. If no one's following, I'm not leading, I'm just walking. And you know who people follow? They follow people that value them. They follow people who listen to their opinions, even if you make a different decision. Acknowledgement over action. That's what listening-led leadership tells us. That to lead others, we need to first listen to them. Because I believe that really this is the equation of our times. Because when people feel seen, they rise. And it's really that simple. If you confuse AI with HI, human intelligence, there is your ROI, your return on investment. Bring them both together because one alone, leave it there at your peril. Ladies and gentlemen, there are so many things in life that we can't choose. Governments, politics, war. We're not in control. But you know what you can choose? You can choose connection every day with your kids, even if you're up at 5 a.m. having a temper tantrum with these little people. You get to choose that. It's in your control. Empathy is the one resource that will grow the more you use of it. And by golly, our world needs it. In the end, there's only one thing I want to leave you with, and it's this. In your businesses, in this room, we are all more alike than we are different. The media will try and pull us apart by nation, by nationality, by skin color, by religion. But they do it for clicks, not for the convention of humanity. Because in the end, the things that make us human, the things that make us perform in your hotels and beyond are all the same things. Because as humans, we're more alike than we are different. And I want to leave you with one final clip to bring this to life. James Bond, thank you. Now, I don't play that because it has epic music, which it does, or because it is the biggest marketing ploy of all times, because they have been making the same movie since 1962. I play it because they are able to make the same movie since 1962. You know why? Because we humans, we never change. We all want to belong. We all want a sense of adventure and someone to love. Because as humans, we're all more alike than we are different. So my last question to you is this. Are you listening? I didn't hear you guys. Are you listening? Thank you very much for listening to me. My name's Mimi Nicklin, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.